Good morning, welcome to Breakfast with Nagamon Chetty and Charlie State.
Our headlines today: forget the sunshine, stay at home and save lives. Police forces across the UK urge people to use their common sense and avoid all unnecessary travel this weekend.
The plea comes as emotional tributes are paid to 2 NHS nurses who died after contracting coronavirus, each leaving behind 3 children.
Americans are told to start wearing face masks in public to stop the spread of coronavirus, but President Trump says he won't be following the advice.
I think wearing a face mask as I greet presidents, prime ministers, dictators, kings, queens, I don't know, somehow I don't see it for myself.
Labour's next leader will be revealed just before 11 o'clock this morning. We'll look at the challenges that Jeremy Corbyn's successor will face.
Good morning. So after days of pressure, Premier League clubs will ask their players to take a wage cut now of 30% as they try to help the financial burden caused by the coronavirus, while club captains will also look to set up a fund to support the NHS.
Climbing 29,000 feet using just one set of stairs. We're going to hear from the man who's conquered Everest in his own home. Good morning, it's Saturday the 4th of April. Our top story is use your common sense, avoid all unnecessary travel. That is a plea from police forces as we're all being urged to stay at home to stop the spread of coronavirus.
With warm temperatures forecast, the government says staying indoors at home is an instruction, not a request. Later on Breakfast this morning, we'll be asking one Chief Constable what they'll be doing to make sure people stick to that instruction.
We're also going to be talking to the Royal College of Nursing about those 2 young nurses who tragically died after testing positive for coronavirus. Simon Jones has the latest.
These were the scenes in Snowdonia 2 weeks ago when many people ignored government advice. Crowds flocked to the coast and parks were busy too. Now, with even more stringent curbs on our movements in place, the Health Secretary says staying at home and protecting lives is not a request, but an instruction.
We're set for a warm weekend in some parts of the country, but the disease is still spreading, and we absolutely cannot afford to relax the social distancing measures that we have in place. We cannot relax our discipline now. If we do, people will die.
Government regulations state everyone must stay at home, but you can leave under the following circumstances. For one form of exercise a day, the advice is to stay as local as possible. You can go out to shop for basic necessities such as food and medicine, but as infrequently as possible. You're also allowed out of the house for any medical needs or to provide care or assistance to someone vulnerable. And you can travel to work, but only if you cannot work from home. An increasing number of councils are instructing dog owners to keep their pets on a lead in parks to avoid any risk of dog walkers coming into contact with each other. In the Lake District, police are using social media to tell tourists to stay away. In some areas, officers have set up roadblocks to question where drivers are going. The police are being told to engage with people and encourage them to return home. Enforcement will be a last resort, with initial fines of up to £60.
Well, undoubtedly this weekend's going to be probably one of the biggest challenges for policing nationally so far. And we know that we're working in an environment where it's quite fast moving. The legislation's only been in for a week or so.
It's a challenging time for families too, who've been cooped up for almost a fortnight.
Usually we go to the park and the kids run around and have fun. We can't do that now, so we're going to stay at home and just keep them busy at home.
The death of this nurse, Amy O'Rourke, and a second, Arima Nazreen, at the hospitals where they worked, sends a clear message, according to the NHS.
Please, I ask you to remember Amy and Arima. Please, stay at home for them.
The government and the police are hoping this will be the norm this weekend, in these least normal of times. Simon Jones, BBC News.
Millions of Americans have been told that they should now wear a face mask in public following new medical guidance on coronavirus.
We should be clear that here in the UK, the advice remains that people do not need to wear one. The US now has nearly 250,000 confirmed cases, as David Willis reports.
President Trump has long downplayed the severity of the coronavirus and once again made plain he doesn't always take the recommendations of his medical staff seriously.
The CDC is advising the use of non-medical cloth face covering as an additional voluntary public health measure. So it's voluntary, you don't have to do it. They suggest it for a period of time, but this is voluntary. I don't think I'm going to be doing it.
The advice to Americans to cover their faces in public comes in the light of new evidence that suggests the virus can be transmitted not just by people who are coughing and sneezing, but by those who have it but don't know they have it. Why, then, is the president rejecting the recommendations of his own advisors?
Sitting in the Oval Office behind that beautiful Resolute desk, the great Resolute desk, I think wearing a face mask as I greet presidents, prime ministers, dictators, kings, queens, I don't know, somehow I don't see it for myself. I just don't.
Of the more than 250,000 Americans currently affected, many are in New York, where the death toll from the coronavirus has now exceeded that of the terrorist attacks of September the 11th. Morgues and hospitals are already inundated, and there's a shortage of masks, gowns and ventilators, with the anticipated surge in coronavirus cases still weeks away. Things could turn out to be even worse in New Orleans, where the Mardi Gras celebrations of late February helped spread the virus before social distancing measures were introduced. The death rate there is more than double that of New York, and the Big Easy is just a week away from running out of hospital beds.
Thank you very much. We'll see you tomorrow. Thank you.
Although President Trump might not be heeding the call to wear a mask, it seems his wife is taking the recommendation seriously. Shortly after her husband's press conference, First Lady Melania Trump tweeted, "As the weekend approaches, I ask that everyone take social distancing and wearing a mask or face covering seriously." The administration's own advisors say close to 250,000 people here could die of the coronavirus. Conceding the surge in cases could be considerable, President Trump told reporters, "I hope they're wrong." David Willis, BBC News, Los Angeles.
China, where the coronavirus pandemic began, has come to a standstill for 3 minutes to remember those who have died. People across the country stopped and bowed their heads to mourn the victims as sirens and horns sounded. China has officially recorded more than 3,000 deaths since December as a result of the outbreak.
We can turn to Europe, where more than 40,000 people have died from the virus. Spain is reporting more than 900 deaths in 24 hours.
Our correspondent has been monitoring the situation from Berlin, and he joins us now. Very good morning to you. So, Damien, tell us a little more about the overall picture.
Yeah, the numbers, Charlie, are still growing, unfortunately. So we're seeing around about 120,000 cases of confirmed infections, Italy and Spain. Those countries still have death tolls still rising of between 12 and 14,000. So terrible numbers, but the hope is that that curve is starting to flatten out. We're also seeing in Germany some quite positive news from the officials who are saying that, in fact, the measures, the restrictions over the past 2 weeks are really starting to pay off. Angela Merkel is now out of quarantine. She gave a video message, which was released last night, saying that what we're now seeing are some quite positive numbers. Still, the numbers are growing. However, not as fast as before. So we're starting to see some sign of positivity in Europe. But of course, across Northern Europe in particular, we're going to have quite good weather this weekend. So very much facing the same sort of challenges that we're seeing in Britain, where authorities in France, in Germany are saying, please stay at home, do not travel. Police are going to be out checking as well, and particularly in France, giving some quite hefty fines if people contravene those rules.
Damien, thank you very much. Damien Grammaticus reporting for us.